Woohoo!
Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you all here.
Oh, graphics. Glad to be here. Nicole. Oh, Dave, your camera does go down.
What?
Well, usually you're framing, you look like you're like 3 feet tall in your framing, but you've moved your camera down this time. I meant to talk to you about that.
Okay.
But it's good now. It looks good now. Looks good. I thought you were just very, very short.
Just turn down the shirt a little. Oh.
Is Joe live tweeting his own panel?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You asking me, Danny?
Yeah, are you live tweeting your own panel?
I am not. Yeah, too much tweeting. I'm glad not to tweet this.
Joe's doing all the transcripts.
Quiet.
And Grant, could you give me permission to record?
Somewhere in rural Illinois, your host for tonight, Nicole.
Somebody's just sucking helium.
You're on.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. This is Nicole Sackage, and I'm here with Grant Cameron. And we have put together a quick panel to talk about TTSA and what it could mean for disclosure. And with us tonight, I'm just going to read down everybody's names real quick. And then when you get called upon to speak, you can give a short introduction if you like. But I'm going to start off with Dave Scott, who wrote a wonderful article for Joel Dodd's site, UAPresearch.com. And in this article was featured quotes by Bob McGuire, Rich Giordano, Tom Whitmore, and am I forgetting somebody? If I am, I'm sorry.
No merger.
Joe Merja, of course. Sorry, Joe, who's also here tonight. And then in a few moments, we'll be joined by Melinda Leslie and Mark McNabb and Rob Freeman. And I do want to mention Danny Silva's here tonight as well. And he wrote a blog on the Silver Record that also tied in with this TTSA discussion and disclosure. So welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, I'm here too.
Great.
Who did I leave out? I'm sorry, I didn't stay to my list.
Dave, it's okay. I'd rather keep it that way.
Hi, Dave Altman.
Hey.
Lounging Dave Altman.
That's
And
it.
Tom Whitmore has just arrived.
Hi, Tom.
I love the hoodie, Dave.
Welcome to the panel.
Hello.
Merry Christmas, everyone. And Dave Scott, why don't you start us off and tell us about TTSA and the articles you've
Tell us
written?
about your hair.
Well, I knew about this story a couple of months ago that it was coming down, and I think like all of us here, we have sources that you know we kind of pry to get any kind of tidbit of information. And I started hearing rumblings about this probably 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe some people knew it a little bit longer than me, but you know, information is tough to go by in regards to this. And the more I started talking to my sources, the more I started learning that there was something really severe going on with the Stars Academy that may not, you know, see it survive in its current incarnation back at that time, you know. And I wanted to kind of keep it a little bit mum, but I started talking to certain people like Joel about it. I talked to Bob about it. Joe Merja and I had a conversation. I talked to Tom Whitmore about it and a few others that I can't name at this time in regards to it. And, you know, the one thing that I always learned in my days of journalism is 3 things. When you hear it once, you got a rumor. When you hear the same thing twice, it has some legs. And the next time you hear it, it's a story. And we actually had this, and Joel and I talked about this about a week and a half beforehand when I was going to start writing this story. And we had most of it written, but we didn't have that smoking gun that we felt we needed in order to confirm everything. We knew it was happening. We knew that the 3 men were going to be resigning. And actually, pardon me, let me correct myself on there. I knew 2 of the men were going to be resigning. I did not know that Steve Justice would be resigning. And we just didn't have that one piece of information that we needed until George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM this past Sunday had Luis Elizondo on the air, and Luis all but confirmed everything. And Joel and I talked, and I said to Joel, I said, I'm running with it, whether you want to put it on UAP research or not, but that's kind of the smoking gun we had. And he's like, I agree with you. Let's run with it. And that's exactly what we did. And it all came together, and it kind of got set up for this entire interview a couple weeks ago when Bob McGuire is on Spaced Out Radio, where we do a segment once a month called Science Bob and Friends. And we had Richard Dolan on. And thankfully, Bob kept quiet just long enough, giving me the last 5 minutes to ask Richard Dolan about it, because I knew I was going to be writing this story, and I wanted Richard Dolan's account of it all on record. And that's when I kind of hit him up with the question that I did. So realistically, we did not break the story. That goes to George Knapp. Danny did some great work on it as well. And, we're just happy to be a part of the game with both Spaced Out Radio at UAPresearch.com in order to, kind of show that we're pretty serious about wanting to cover this on a real journalism level. And I think we were able to accomplish that.
Wonderful, Dave. And I'm kind of looking over your article right here. And I know I asked everybody who is a part of it to be here today so they could kind of each speak to their part of your article. And why don't you set up our pal Rich from Goof On to talk about his quote from your article.
Yeah, not a
Welcome,
problem.
Rich.
I actually had
Thanks.
to edit Rich's comment down a little bit, because literally he wrote me a very long War and Peace on it, but it was very accurate. But I mean, the big thing with the article is I wanted balanced, or to try and make it as balanced as possible. I've always been known as a critic of the To the Stars Academy publicly, but I wanted to try and make it balanced, and that's why, from not putting my own perspective into it, I wanted a critic and I wanted a staunch supporter. So that's why Rich came in as a critic. Joe Mergia came in as the pro TTSA. We tried to get Danny on board on that one, but he had his own thing going on. Plus he was at work, so we couldn't line up with them at the time of the print. But Rich is the one provided some what I thought was a very fair and balanced critique on looking at one side of the TTSA.
Which is true. And I have to say, I was in support of TTSA when they first came out until what we talked about, or what I wrote about, were the 3 videos. And giving us that kind of footage and saying these are the UFOs, these are real, and you can't tell what they look like. It could have been, that's the difference between night and day, between FLIR and just non-FLIR footage. So I figured there's something behind this. They're not going to tell us. They're going to take us right to the door and slam it on us like they do every time. And that's how I felt. And when I looked into it, I found an article from 1993, and I'll post it later on Facebook. There was an Iraqi soldier who talked about seeing these drones, when we were fighting down there, and they were doing things that drones shouldn't do. So I looked up a bunch of drones from back then, and I matched it up with the gimbal. And believe it or not, it kind of looks like the little things protruding out of the, you can see the little protrusions, and it's turning like this. And I was kind of figuring it out. I think that this is not what we think it is. This is just regular airlines, a fighter jet. And I don't know what the go fast was, probably a bird, who knows? But I became skeptical rather quickly because of that. And I just, to this day, cannot see those as being legitimate alien craft or back engineered alien craft technology. That's it. Nicole?
I think we lost our host.
Let's go with pro
Yeah.
TTSA. Joe, do you want to speak to this?
I mean, I'm pro whoever is going to get us information, put out videos. It's the only videos we've had that have now been, confirmed that they're UAP. As far as it being a commercial airliner, I think that's a joke. I mean, I don't think an F-18 pilot is getting fooled by a commercial airliner. That's just ridiculous. Whether or not it's alien, I have no idea.
Unless we're lied to.
It would have to be
I don't think Luis Elizondo is lying to us. I just don't. There's no evidence he's.
So now the government officials don't lie.
You want to think he's lying? That's fine. There's zero evidence of that. Actually, I think the best thing is that ufology in a long time. Chris Mellon too. I think they don't know what it is. There are people out there that think these guys know exactly what it is. I don't think they do. But in your point, though, I'll say we need to see the entire video. So far, what's been released is interesting, but if the thing is making 90-degree turns, I want to see that. We need to see that. So far, we have not seen that. But, Mellon and Elizondo, in Dave's article, another article he wrote, they took a risk in putting that video out. So we have the video. We have no other videos to go by for now. But for now, that's what we have.
Not only that, but something obviously is happening out by Catalina Island, because to me, the fact that it was in that area just makes it more credible. I'm not saying it's an alien or extra dimensional or whatever, but that just is just one more thing, one more plus.
Let's go to the leaving though. I mean, we've gone around in circles on this video thing for a couple of years and we haven't resolved anything. What about the fact that these guys have left?
I thought that what's his name debunked it already.
Well, some people have debunked it, and some people
I'm joking.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, let's get to what do you think is going on now with TTSA? Why is this move? Because if this was picked up 6 months ago, this story, it has nothing to do with the videos. It has something to do with where are these guys going? Who's got the money? Because that's what I said is they've got to be going somewhere because they're not making, the wage of a maid at Motel 6. These guys are making some big money. So why are they leaving? What's really going on here? And this is a story that Dave has broken. And this is like almost every time when the reason I proposed we do this panel was because every time we have one of these stories, it's like there's like 3 people left who don't know that this story's happening. And everybody gets upset. Oh, wow, these people broke this story and they shouldn't be talking about it, whatever. But somebody was talking the same as somebody was talking about the triangle piece. And someone was talking when the New York Times was going. Everybody knew the New York Times was doing a story. So this story's been out for many months. I've heard about it, that these guys were leaving. And that's what I wanted to do tonight, is to resolve what do people think is going on? Why are they leaving? What's going on? Is there money problems?
Hey, Grant, I don't think I told you this, but I knew over a month ago that the show was canceled. Unidentified.
Okay, so I mean, but let's give some speculation as to why. Like, what's actually going on? That's what I'm wondering. Is because I'll give you my thing. When this thing broke, I already said I had written Managing Magic. I had identified Jim Semivan 8 months before he came out, before they went public. I knew they were going public. It had to do with Hillary Clinton and Podesta. I've always said that. And when she lost the election, they had to retool the thing. And so we knew they were going public, but we knew they were going to do the TTSA news conference thing. I got Dan Smith, friend of Ron Pandolfi, on there. And I said, Dan, get on. Come on, they're going live here. What do you say? And so he went to Ron that same day and got Ron's comment. And Ron said, it's a techno scam. This thing will shut down in 2 years. And Mellon's been in it since the 1990s. I know all these guys. And so this story's been going on for a long time. So Ron was out by a year, but he said this thing was going to fold. He said something completely different than people think is going on. So now I want to find out, why have these guys left? Because I don't think it really changes anything. These guys are still very powerful spokesmen for UFOs. And I think TTSA has done a tremendous amount of material. We were in the dark before TTSA came along. I mean, whatever people want to say, whether the stories, the videos are right, or the New York Times stories are right, it's a completely different world than it was in 2017. These guys opened this thing up, and you got to give them credit for that. But what's going on with these 3 guys leaving? What Tom, you talked about, I think in one of the previous panels we had, that there was financial problems. Do you want to talk to that? Do you think that's what's going on?
Well, I did go through the SEC filings. There's a website, sec.gov, where these companies are required to post their filings. And I was able to go through the financials, the P&L, the income statements from 2015 on, and they're in the hole every year. Now, there's one year I think they had like 30 million in stock compensation, but I backed that out, to get a realistic idea of what at least of what their accounting income is. And it's negative every year. And I think if you, I annualized 2020, but annualized, it should be cumulatively over $5 million. Now, in the big scheme of things with the big corporations, $5 million is hardly even a drop in the bucket. But if you're Tom DeLonge or whoever is having to put the money in, even if you're as wealthy as Tom DeLonge probably is from his music business, $5 million is a lot of money. Okay. So it doesn't look good to me from that standpoint. Now, I don't know. I'm just looking at the numbers. And I go into the cash flow statement, and they have negative operating cash flow. And then I look at the financing cash flow, and somebody is having to, they did sell some stock, to whoever, but somebody is having to put money into the business every year. And I don't care how rich you are, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 or more per year. That's a lot of money. So that's from a financial standpoint, I get the feeling that, that there are problems.
I can answer most of these questions for you, Grant.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to go to you because you put a little investment in here and you've got sort of an insight. So what do you think is going on, Danny?
Tom's focused on entertainment mostly. Some of the other guys, they haven't done as much as Lou, and they haven't done as much as Chris. I think that's evident when you look at who's speaking all the time, who's doing all the work, who's doing all the interviews. It's Lou and it's Chris, and they felt like they weren't getting backed up as much. They were not into the entertainment stuff. That Lou said that specifically on Coast. They're into the disclosure thing, and they want to continue that, and they don't want to be held back. And the TTSA has, in a way, put themselves in a bad position because they were letting Lou and Chris do everything, at least above board. I can't take anything away from Hal. Dr. Putoff has done great stuff, but other people have been way, way in the background, like Jim Semivan, super in the background. Me personally, I would say he wasn't pulling his weight. And Lou and Chris left, and they're going to continue doing what they do. And they're the best at what they do. And I think we can all be very grateful for what they did. As far as the videos, that doesn't have anything to do with what happened recently. Right. I mean, it doesn't discredit the videos.
Right.
We don't need to be talking about that, like you said, Grant. But that's basically it. I mean, I'm sure there's other things going on in the background too, but basically they don't want to be associated with it as much, and they don't want to have to be held back as much, and they just want to do their thing. And I think we're going to see things pretty quickly in the next year or less that goes on, and the show isn't stopping, and disclosure isn't stopping, and everything that Lou and Chris are doing is not going to stop. They've put their lives on the line, probably more so than a lot of the other members. And I think it's a great thing. And like you said, this is just moving things around. And I tried to say that in my blog. It's kind of like players in the sport getting traded, but they're not going to stop playing. They're still going for that championship.
Okay, let me bring this up. In a number of years, I've talked to a lot of very rich people who've been in the UFO business. One very rich guy said to me at one point, he said, Grant, he said, I've got a question for you. How the heck do you make any money at this thing? And he ended up pulling out because he couldn't make any money. So my question to you would be, and it goes to the question that George Knapp asked Lou, was who's paying their salary? Because if they're leaving, somebody's got to pay, and there's no money in UFOs. And George asked him the question, if you had the chance to go back. And that's when I heard George ask that question, I'm going, why is he asking that question? If you had the chance to go back, would you go back? And that was where I asked you the question during the week of whether this money had come through for the task force. The task force bill hasn't been passed. What's that?
The task force bill hasn't been passed. It should hopefully still be passed in the next few days. What was vetoed today was not the UAP task force bill.
Trump vetoed it.
Yeah, what was vetoed today was not the UAP task force bill. So that should still pass the next few days. Chris Mellon is independently wealthy. I don't know if he was ever paid in the first place from To the Stars. Lou is moving on. You know, he was, I think, getting paid or he had some sort of financial agreement with To the Stars Academy. That's obviously gone now, and he's moved on. So, and then I'm sure money is an issue. You know, Joe has talked about this, that, you know, To the Stars needed more money, and that's why they did the CRADA. The CRADA was, is still going on, by the way. It was actualized. I've seen some claims that it wasn't. I know for a fact it was. I know some of the people on the government side that are involved with it. I know their names. And the CRADA is still going on.
A CRADA is not a contract. I don't know how many times I have to repeat this.
Right.
It's not a contract. You need a contract to flow money.
You're right. You're right about that, Bob. Some of the other things you tweeted, Bob, weren't accurate, though.
Bob's nostrils were flaring.
Yeah, I'm pissed.
No, Bob, some of the things you tweeted, my guy, and I respect you, Bob. I really like you a lot. Some of the things you tweeted yesterday about the CRADA, they weren't accurate, however. But you're right. It is just an agreement. But the CRADA is going on. It's still going on. It's going to be going on with TTSA and how.
Bob, what's your take on what's going on? Where are these guys going? And my big question is, how are they going to make a living? I mean, they must be going somewhere. They're not just leaving.
I wonder what, I wonder if Mellon is not headed back to the government. And I don't know that he is, but I wonder if he is headed back to the government, because he could easily land in the Biden administration, given where he was. I don't know that. Now, when I felt TTSA was in trouble, was we saw the rollout, we saw DeLong on the stage with no press in front of him, talking to an empty room with people seated on high chairs behind him. And I felt, hey, this looks really interesting.
They were practicing for COVID.
It felt really, really interesting. So that's kind of when I jumped on the bandwagon and says, I'm going to figure out what's going on here, because I know every one of those guys sitting on a bar stool. Okay. So then WikiLeaks happened. And my entire view of TTSA changed the day WikiLeaks happened, and it was it was based on the assumption that DeLong was telling the basic truth, and that is he worked a really long time, really worked hard, got inside and talked to people, and then WikiLeaks happened. And the people inside saw the following, that DeLong mentioned the name of extremely important high-ranking people to John Podesta in an email. Just knowing that would have already blown it up. But how did they find it out? Julian Assange blew it up all over the world. And let me explain to you that people in the intelligence community and in the top secret parts of the Pentagon, as soon as you do something that causes that kind of thing to happen, you're a leper. You're a friggin' asshole. You're done. They won't talk to you. They won't pick up the phone. They won't email you. You're lucky they don't shoot you. I'm just telling you. He did himself in by having that email come out in WikiLeaks. I don't know anything else about Tom DeLong specifically, except I know how the people in the intelligence community think, how they operate, and if you screw up, you're pariah until the screw up is fixed, and it was never fixed. I believe that DeLong lost access to his advisors. And by then, all those guys were all on the stage. They were out in public. And so they did the very best job they could do. And in my opinion is Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo, they're national friggin' heroes. They managed to do an amazing amount of legislative work. They got really great results in terms of getting people in front of Congress critters and getting them to listen. And what is my evidence of this? Rubio, as chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, wrote into the National Defense Authorization Act this UAP language that would make UAPTF's funding official rather than them having to scrape dollars that had been left on the floor. So they've got whatever number of people they've got. They scraped money off of last year's federal budget floor, and they funded them to get going and get ready once the authorization bill passed. Now, my last understanding was, and Danny may know more than I do, but my last understanding was the UAPTF language that came out of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence got through conference and got into the NDAA. So all of that language was put into the National Defense Authorization Act, which 2 days ago, Donald Trump vetoed. My opinion is that both houses of Congress will override the veto. I'm not sure of that, but my opinion is the NDAA will be passed over Donald Trump's veto. And if the UAPTF language is in the NDAA, it will then be law of the land. Now, so
My understanding is that the actual language is in the Intelligence Authorization Act, and the Intelligence Authorization Act didn't go through because there was a disagreement in the House about other issues besides the UAP, and they'll have to renegotiate that after the first of the year. That's my understanding.
Okay, yeah, if it goes to conference, every bet is off until the new Congress is seated, unless they come back specifically for that the intelligence authorization. So Tom, if Tom is right, and the language was not in the NDAA, but it was added to the Intelligence Act, which is what they do is they take the money and they spread it all across government if it's black, and they hide it. Okay, so if that is correct, then there would have to be a major reason for wanting to do it. What's the major reason for wanting to do it? Well, that's obvious. The Russians have attacked every major company that supplies stuff to the government and most of the major agencies that we care about, period. They have attacked them all over the place. They have got worms and moles and peepholes in their network systems, operating systems, all over government and in commercial companies. Intel, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Cisco. I mean, Cisco is in half the routers in the United States of America. And so we have a really good shot that they will come back and work on the intelligence bill because of the Russian hack. So those are me reading the tea leaves. Nobody, I don't have sources. I'm just reading tea leaves and saying how I know things used to operate. And that's mostly what I have, because I'm not like you guys. I don't have a ton of sources.
I got different info on the bill. Joe knows one of the sources. We were told today that it's not, it wasn't vetoed, and that it was, and then I have another source that also told me it wasn't vetoed and that it should still pass in the next few days. Do I know that for a fact? No. But I trust
the NDAA was vetoed, but if Tom's right, this language wasn't in the NDAA. They moved it into the intelligence bill, and I don't know where that stands because I haven't kept up.
I think it's
still guys. Let me jump in real quick.
And I can comment on Hi, Melinda.
Yeah, I know Melinda had a conversation today with her best pal, Jim Semivan. Yeah. So let's let Melinda jump in for a second and let her give us some breaking news.
You need some better video though, or audio.
You need a better audio. Fix your microphone.
You need a bigger boat.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes. Much better.
Okay, sorry. It was sorry. And I apologize for being late. Technical difficulties on my end. So I spoke with Jim Semivan for an hour and a half today on the phone, and we covered everything I've heard talked about as soon as I turned on my computer till now. We covered. So first off, regarding what you guys are saying right now with the NDA and all that, he said, what really drove that is very senior people pushed for this, you know, and were briefed, okay, by To the Stars and Navy people combined, obviously. And he went on to say that that Congress voted, I said, will they force it through? He said, yes, he expected it to happen very soon, because he said in the NDAA, people aren't getting paid, you know, and branches, the military and intelligence literally like are in a standstill because the money is not being allocated. So he says, this is about, you know, freeing up the money. And he said, they will push it through, you know, he said that he's hearing that they do want Trump to look at it and agree, but they're prepared to, regardless, to put it through. Now, he made it sound like the wording about this, the UAP task force, you know, section is in a subsection, but it is in there. So you have the military part, you have the intelligence part, and then there's a, you know, it's in a subsection. But he said,
I want to say that was my understanding, is the intelligence language, and every major agency that does work for the Pentagon, which does not include the CIA, NRO, NSA, DIA, etc., their budgets are in the NDAA, in a intelligence community subsection. Trump vetoed that bill. And if Jim is right, they will pass it soon.
Yeah, he is saying, and I said, does it not require the president? And my understanding, and he said, yes, it does not, and they can do it without him. He said, because of the need becoming one of desperation, basically, he expected it would go through very, very quickly. He said, it's all in there. It's going to go through. Now, he said, as far as though the task force information that's in there, he said, it'll remain in there, but it can get changed after the fact, because he said, Congress can change it and change the wording. He doesn't think they will, but they can. And he said, and then the Director of National Intelligence can request the information in a certain way that would, like, he could ask for more time, okay, to put the report together. So the 180 days is a guideline, but that can easily and quickly be changed. So, but he said, as far as the whole thing and the funding happening, he expected that to happen quickly as far as going through with the rest of the bill.
What does he say about these guys leaving? Did you talk about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, get to the good stuff, Melinda. The good stuff.
The thing is, out of all my conversations with Jim, I felt he was the most guarded in this one. Now, we talked a lot and it was very friendly, and, you know, we even argue. You know, I've gotten to that point where I can have that kind of discussion with him. But I asked him, I just asked him so many things. One of the things was, of course, why the guys are leaving. He basically said personal reasons. So personal reasons on their part, and different reasons for all three of them. Like, they each have their own set of different reasons. I asked, is anyone go to work for the government? And there was a kind of a pause there, and kind of a dance around in language, but he basically, the kind of the first thing he said is, it's a possibility. So I'm actually quoting him on, it's a possibility. And then additionally, he said they're weighing their options. So I took that to mean, even though he danced around it, as yes, basically, you know. I mean, he said that he said, I can't say for them what they're going to do. That's their choice. You know, he said but they are weighing their options, and it is a possibility. And he emphasized the word possibility.
So there you are, guys. You heard it here first from Melinda Leslie. Tom DeLonge is going to work for the U.S. government.
No, not Tom DeLonge.
Hey, wouldn't you think? What
No. Specifically, if we were going to be specific, they were talking Chris and Lou.
Did they do
Melinda, have you ever asked
Jim? That.
Have you ever asked Jim
Did
why
they
he
get
doesn't
any
do
kind
interviews?
of press release from the entertainment company side?
Not that I'm aware of, although
There's a press release
like,
coming.
usually an entertainment company that does movies, any type of production, does a press release. You know, I was just curious.
Okay, he didn't mention that. What he did say is everything about this will be up on their website. He made it sound like within the next 2 days. You guys were talking Christmas, so what do you bet a couple days after Christmas? But he said everything will be up on the website. It is being worked on. What?
Is he leaving?
No, the only ones leaving, because we went over that, and he mentioned everybody's names. Jim, Tom, Meiser, Hal, advisors, you know, are all staying. The only ones leaving is Chris, Steve, and Lou, and Chris Mellon, of course. And anyway, so and that Steve is leaving for, he says each one is leaving for different reasons. They're not all leaving for the same reason. And he seemed to emphasize that. I did believe him about that. Like each one had, you know, different personal reasons.
So why is they at the same time?
There you go, Danny. They're hiring.
I mean, it's also some of the same reasons. I mean, Lou said that on Coast to Coast also.
Yeah.
What's weird is Lou said that, you know, he's not an entertainer. Then I think it was either today on Twitter, he said he's going to be joining up with a hard-hitting documentary, and that's entertainment. And for me, you need entertainment. You need to bring people in. I have no problem with that, but that's kind of a little contradictory there.
I don't know if he was talking about like the movies that Tom was making, like the fictional movies, but I'm not sure.
Well, okay,
well, they do have entertainment projects that they're working on, and part of this is the reason they're doing that is you guys were talking about earlier. Somebody was saying they need the money. Yes, absolutely. I think Tom, you were saying that. So Jim was going on and on about they need the money. The little bit that's coming in from the investors is not enough. There's no money in the CRADA yet, you know, because of that. Like you said, it's not a contract. So the CRADA is happening. That is going on. It is regarding the metamaterials and a few other things. And he said that's how we're going to get the research in those labs to do that. And the government is funding some, and he said we'll be funding some. But the entertainment projects are for everything else that he said we're planning this because they pay. And we have some big possible investors or people showing interest who say we need to see things that make money in the end. And he was emphasizing that the entertainment projects make money. So he was saying that is something where someone who you know, like a large money person or corporation or something.
It's important to remember that Semivan is a founding member.
Yes.
Right.
Melinda, did Jim say anything to you in your conversation regarding the fact that I talked to a former member of the TTSA today for about 20, 25 minutes who told me and confirmed that many of the problems within that group revolve around Tom DeLonge himself, and how the uncontrollable rock star seems to come out every now and again. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not.
He told me that wasn't true.
But do they have a plan on trying to kind of harness in Tom?
He told me that wasn't true. I asked him about that. I'm just, now you guys, I'm not saying whether it's true or not. What do I know? All I'm saying is what Jim told me. And I know he's close to Tom. They've become pretty good friends. And so he specifically said, no, that is not why. And went on to, defend Tom in that way. So anyways, that's what he told me. He said, no, he said, it's not because Tom being a problem or anything like that. It's just different personal reasons and some professional for the guys, and his pause about them, particularly Chris and Lou, and also, Steve's probably got some technical stuff in the aerospace community, to work on. And I think they're all leaving for career decisions, but he also said personal decisions. And he said, look, they'll be mad if I get into it. So he said that he wouldn't tell me. And I said, you know, I always start every conversation with him with, you know, if there's anything you don't want me to share or anything you don't want known, either don't tell me or tell me not to say, you know. And he just said, look, the guys would be really mad at me if I got into their reasons, their own reasons, and, you know, and they've asked me not to share them. So, you know, that's,
you know, Dave, regarding what Dave Scott said, you know, like I've known Tom for a long time, probably almost 20 years. And I think that if he did anything to that, you know, might make him look smaller or stupid or have a concern for other things, if he made the team mad, if they mentioned to him one time something like that, like, you know, we're concerned about your behavior, he would instantly change it. Like, he would do anything possible.
The tweets didn't stop though. We see the tweets.
A lot of them.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest problems for a long time, though. I mean, we've all witnessed it from the outside in the community. From a PR standpoint, I think they've had a real headache for a long time because their message has been sort of complicated, it's been convoluted, it's shifted and changed, which you have to do whenever you're running a business. You have to be able to pivot and move with things. But just the reactions in the community, seeing Tom's posts on Instagram, some very questionable material. I think we can all agree on that. And then the fact that he will post things and then a few hours later, to Dave's point in his article, he'll then delete them again. So
but he's always done that though. Yeah. Whoever did their research should have known that's what you're getting when you get along. So it's nothing new.
I understand that, but from a business standpoint, everybody has to be on the same page.
They knew what they were getting.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they didn't do their research to who he was. That's
yes, exactly. That's what Jim told me. He said, "Look, everyone knew he was a rock star. Everyone knew the way he was. Everyone let that go. That was his, you know, personality. His
it wasn't like he was a member of the Bee Gees. He was in Blink-182. They're known.
Yeah. And
we also hold
and he said,
also hold to the stars to some like crazy standard that we don't hold anyone else to, and I think that's unfair. You know, they're normal people. They can make mistakes. Everyone else makes mistakes, and I haven't seen anyone in the UFO community not make mistakes. And if TTSA makes one, it's like the biggest deal in the world.
But the question still is, Tom DeLonge has always been like this. They bought into this, like Bob mentioned, that they knew he had this problem right from the time the WikiLeaks happened, but they joined up with him. And the question still remains, Melinda, why are they leaving at this particular point all at the same time? And you brought it up with Jim, but are they going back to the government? And you heard when Lou was asked, he said, it's time to move from first gear to second gear. I'm not an entertainer. And then George asked him, and George would not have asked him unless he had some insight. Would you go back to the government? He didn't say, are you going back to the government? And so you asked, and that's why I keep asking, like, why are they all leaving, despite all the problems that Tom might have, despite what's happened? Why are they leaving at this particular point?
Well, I'm sorry, Grant, this is frustrating. You know, this will probably frustrate everyone. It frustrated me. This is one of those places where he was kind of guarded. He said, you know, when I asked about the government, he said, well, there's a possibility. And he, you know, emphasized that, and they're weighing options. It may be that they're considering a bunch of things, you know. He was very, very guarded. He said each one was leaving for their own reasons, but they each had their own reasons for doing so. And my sense was that the timing was just an issue. It's the holidays, it's the end of the year, start the year off, you know. And anyway, so I didn't ask him specifically why this time. It just seemed that there was maybe a logic to that. And maybe and my sense again was maybe it had planned for a while and they waited to do it at the same time.
But you did get from him the fact that he did acknowledge that he might be going back to the government, right?
But if Chris Mellon or Lou Elizondo go back into the government, you will stop hearing from them.
Yes.
They will not talk in public without their superiors telling them it's okay.
He said that.
What about someone like Eric Davis, though? Because Eric Davis said publicly he was a contractor.
Melinda, did you
Yes.
happen to ask Jim if he's planning on becoming more of a public figurehead for TTSA, or who he
Well, yeah,
supposedly
yeah. He
invited
said
to these spots?
yes. Yeah. Yes, we talked about that quite a bit.
So he's coming on our next chat, you're saying?
No, he's not, unfortunately. No. I think begrudgingly he realizes that they need to do that. He is planning, he kept telling me that him and Chris Miser are planning a podcast together. He's trying to twist Chris Miser's arm to do a podcast with him, and address everything and their plans, etc. First, it's going to come out on the website, but he said we may have a podcast soon. He said I do want to do that. He doesn't want to be
Chris here too. Chris can come if he brings Jim. They can buddy up and come on our panel.
No, they won't. He made it very clear in the past. Well, okay. At first, he made it very clear that he wouldn't do a panel with us or an interview for any one of us involved. Do we still have Dave on? Oh, Dave on with us? Anyways, but any one of us.
Just a chair.
Dave's not here.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Okay, well, but regardless, I said a panel or an interview with anybody. Is there anyone out in ufology you guys would be willing to have interview you? I mean, obviously, probably Nat, but I didn't bring that up specifically. But he said no, not for now. And at first he was going no about any panel, and then later in the conversation he kind of, because I went back to it a couple times. He said, well. He said, maybe. He said, let me talk to the other guys. And, so it ended up being kind of a maybe thing. There was an emphasis repeatedly in the conversation that it isn't about ufology. What they're doing, they see, ufology, they appreciate that we've been helpful in getting the information out. And he said hi to all of you. I didn't know who all was going to be on, but the names that I threw out at him, he said, of course, hello. And I looking at this group, I know he'd be like, oh, great. So we've talked about stuff like that in the past. And, I know everyone in here is on his approval list, let's just say. So, so they're supportive of ufology that way and appreciates everything they've done, but it's not about that. So it's not about talking to us. Okay. And right now they're very focused on getting some big donors so they can move forward with projects and things they have in mind. And they're part of the CRADA and the funding. And, and he went on and on about the vault and Scout and the money they need to do that. They're really wanting to do that. And so that was an emphasis on his part to go on and on about that. And I think when they really looked at it, the few bigger money investors that they have showing any interest are wanting to see a return. For instance, like a movie or a TV show or something being made. Now, he said, of course, undisclosed did not get picked up again. He did tell me that. And, but he said, there's a thing where we can get money, coming in right away. And some of the big money are showing an interest in that. So it's like they're having to give anyone who's of big money, who's shown an interest at all, and says, what can you provide me? They're having to create the thing that those people want. Right.
Melinda, you brought up an interesting point.
Hang on.
They really have their back against the wall right now. It's unfortunate. Yes. And not only from a money standpoint, it sounds like, from having to team up with other people, but they also just from a PR standpoint. And, I still support To the Stars Academy. I invested in them. And I would have liked to see Jim speaking. They shouldn't be speaking through Silver Record, Danny Silva. They shouldn't be speaking through Melinda or Grant Cameron or Dave Scott or anyone. They should be going to the big newspapers. And I think Jim Semivan would have had a chance, and maybe he'll do that moving forward. And
that's what they said. They said
Melinda,
if they're getting the word out about something they're doing, they still have with the Times and other sources, they still have their connections and their foot in the door. And he said, we're going to go that way when we have a major, announcement or something, because it's about getting the word out. He said, ufology will hear. We're not worried about informing them. They stay informed. They listen to everything. And by the way, you guys, they listen to everything we do. All our panels, they've been listening to.
Right, but
they read
Melinda, you just
Dave's
brought us
article, and
interesting point.
I passed on privately to Dave and Danny. I meant to tell you, and I apologize, I meant to before the thing. They read your article, they read Dave's. Jim said, great job to both Dave and Danny on their articles. They said, thank you, both you guys were correct. I mean, yours was more just, yours was much shorter and everything. But he said both were correct. And he said to tell Dave his was very correct, and that they agreed. There were only a few, maybe a few minor, things that weren't correct, but very minor. But he said, we agreed, and we thought both of you had a good viewpoint. So, and I'm like, wow, and Joe, they read your stuff. I mean, everybody, they're reading everybody's stuff.
That's what I want to bring up right now, though. You brought up an interesting point that they said whatever they do, they're not doing it for the UFO community. And Dave, that was one of your points in your follow-up opinion piece about how from the get-go, TTSA has not been for the UFO community. So would you like to talk on that point and maybe a few of your other 14? And anybody else jump in? And Grant, I know you've got a question too.
Oh, one other quick thing that in his saying that, a thing he kept going on about too. He said it gets noticed by the people in government when we're talking to the UFO community, and our stuff is getting out there and getting seen. It gets noticed by those folks, and those folks get nervous. So he said the senators, the Congress people, the people in the briefings, the people with the task force, all of it. He said they get really nervous because they're like, look, they're all so concerned about their image and getting elected again. Hello, we all know the game, and so they get very nervous. And so he said, we're not going to go out of our way to go to ufology when those people say, please don't, because you guys, we still have a negative image out there in the world.
Well, why don't they help us change that image, though? They're not doing anything to help us change it. Dave, jump in.
Yeah, they
here,
are.
please.
They've done a lot. They got in the Times. We've all been sitting here saying the congratulatory things that they have done. Yeah, they've done a lot. Is it everything? No, but they've done what they can, and our image is changing. I get it from my clients on my tours. It is changing. If the NDA, if the task force funding goes through and they start moving towards that public report, we all know that'll change everything. Now I said, what are we looking at timing wise, anything on that? And he basically, again, kind of danced around that, but it came down to, it's really up in the air, because he said, first it goes through, and then does the DNI want more time? If they're going to go with the timing or more time, he said, they're probably going to come back and request more time. He said, it could change, and he said he expects everything to go through, because he said the main thing is, the people that they briefed, and he said these are really, what was his wording here?
Well, Melinda, let's come back to that. I've asked Dave twice to join now, so I'm not meaning to cut you off.
These are senior people, right. And he said, look, these are really, really senior people who have a lot of pull in the House and Congress, a lot of pull. And he said they're on board, and also the Navy. And he said, because they're all on board, he expects it all to keep moving forward, because he said they're driving it. Okay, right. There you go. Sorry, guys.
Now, in regards to the article that I wrote as a follow-up to the piece on UAPresearch.com and spacedoutradio.com, I really wanted to do a couple of things. Number one, I didn't want to seem like I was kicking Tom DeLonge or the TTSA while they were down, and I realize some people will take it that way. But literally since the inception of the group, it was just key observations that I have made over the years in regards to trying to formulate kind of some red flag areas that I saw, not only for the UFO public, but for journalism as well. And, you know, one of the things that that really kind of stood out to me regarding these pieces was the UFO community, the experiential community that is out there. And I disagree with, you know, I mean, I shouldn't say I disagree. I understand what Melinda just said about Jim Semivan regarding the government wanting to get a little nervous when people are talking about this. But imagine how much more success this group could have had if they would have taken the time to accept and almost find a place for the UFO community. Look, we're not all wingnuts. We're not all tinfoil conspiracy theorists. Sure, we may have a lot of information that is a little mixed up and confused and convoluted, but in the same breath, I look at the panel right in front of me here. There's a lot of brain power right here that could be beneficial to getting a message like the TTSA out, except they've gone out of their way to go the opposite direction regarding the UFO community. Yes, we already know. Yes, we're already believers. Yes, we are people who don't need conviction that this is going on, but they could have used the support. It wouldn't have been unanimous, but it would have been a lot better than the tactics that they did use in regards to trying to formulate a plan to get the mainstream on board. We're connected to the mainstream. We may be alternative people, but we're connected to the mainstream because we're still talking. We want to direct people to those pieces. We want to direct our friends, our family, our coaches, our pastors, our coworkers to that field. And by alienating this and the people from the To the Stars Academy that are in this community, I thought it was a real detriment to them. And then that's one of the 14 things that I wrote down as an issue towards why they had troubles getting success.
Can I give the other side of that?
Sure.
I mean, I disagree, I guess. I think that Lou has done a ton of interviews. Chris has reached out. Hal Putoff answers a lot of emails. He went on Black Vault, Unidentified, Adam Keogh. That's just Lou. And that's just recently, or off the top of my head. So I feel like they have been in contact. Now, there's other guys like
more recently, Danny,
Yeah.
but up for the first couple of years, they have, and this is one thing I talked to someone today about it, in regards to this person being on the TTSA board. One of and he understood exactly what I said, and he agreed with me. He stated point blank, for the first couple of years, they only went on radio shows or podcasts that were completely supporting them. They did not go on any type of show or podcast that was not in the TTSA vault. Okay. I have 15 media requests personally for Spaced Out Radio that have been declined. The only one that I have gotten close to, which you know about, was the one where I was asked to prepare questions and present them to them before they would agree to do the interview. As a journalist, I would never do that. I've interviewed more people over my time as a journalist that are way more famous than this group, and I've never provided questions, nor should a journalist ever. So the fact that they haven't fulfilled their duties on a media front, which would have been better off for them, it's baffling. It's absolutely baffling.
Lou did go on Black
to
Vault
shows
and Adam
or
Keogh.
talk to people like Danny, who are absolute 100% in their breadbasket.
Well, the problem is, Dave, if I worked for TTSA and I saw the people that were on your show, like Chris Zuger, I would not go on your show.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant, Joe. That is so irrelevant.
But there are other people.
That's irrelevant. My show is about entertainment, where I'm going to bring on everybody.
Not Cogswell.
Okay, I bring on people who don't agree with Bob. You don't see Bob crap. Come on, Joe, wake up.
I would not go.
Absolutely wake up, Joe.
Hang on, guys.
That's not how the media works, and you know that.
Not media.
You're
That's
part of it,
total
Joe.
bias.
Okay, hang on. No, you guys.
Total bias.
Hang on, Joe.
Total
Stop.
bias.
Both you guys.
talking
That
that
should have
way,
never
Joe.
been allowed on the air.
Absolutely. Shame on
he
you for
said-
talking that way, Joe. You know it's about entertainment with what I do. I'm on 5
This
days
is not
a week,
entertainment
Joe.
for me. This is not entertainment for most of us. I'm sorry.
My show is an entertainment
That
show.
guy was
It's
not
always
entertaining,
been an
Dave. He was just
entertainment show,
totally
Joe.
open-wide.
That's why it's
So,
not a
stop,
that's why
you
it's not
guys.
a
This is
kiss-ass
Guys,
podcast like a lot of these
Guys,
people
this
have
isn't a
out
good
there.
use of our
We're
time.
not
here,
here
okay?
to attack anybody personally. We're here to discuss
Jim
the
said
public
it's-
figures in this,
Jim
not
said-
anybody
Could I
else
say
and how they do
something?
their work.
Jim said
I'd
it
like
is
to say
about.
something.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's let Tom.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe they didn't want to give it media interviews, Dave, for whatever reason. But what they could have done was they could have gone to the leaders in the UFO community, and we all know who they are, and ask for their support, ask for their cooperation, and maybe explain their whole approach. And maybe they did that in some instances, but I think there are other instances that they didn't.
They did. They dealt with the head of MUFON because they were going to arrange a meeting with me and Lou Elizondo. So they did go to the head of MUFON and they did do the dealing. As to Dave's thing, I've studied the president since the 1980s, so I would defend their not giving interviews because the president gives a lot of interviews, but they've never given one to me, and I've worked on the president for 35 years. So I mean, I can see that they want to do their PR thing and only talk to whoever they want to talk to get the best spin on what they're selling, because basically they're selling something. And but I want to poke the bear because we've got one guy who hasn't talked yet. I want to bring Rob Freeman in here because the question I keep asking is why are these guys leaving at this time and where are they going? Because they've got to make money, except for maybe Mellon. But Rob Freeman was involved in the app that is being used by TTSA that they've promoted endlessly, and this is all this tech, and it's connected to the government, and they're getting this, this high-tech artificial intelligence where you can put it on your cell phone and you know exactly what's going on. So Rob, I asked you just in the last couple of days, you helped design this thing. So I said to you, did you make the deal with Lou Elizondo, or did you make it with TTSA? And so the other question I have, not only why are these guys leaving at this particular time and where are they going, but what happens to all this technology? Because Lou Elizondo, it's like the whole thing I had with the videos, is when you resign from the Secretary of Defense or from the Defense Department, you don't get a bunch of videos as your goodbye presidents. And so all this technology that they've developed that's being used to track UFOs and all this kind of stuff, Lou Elizondo is walking away with all this, without all this stuff. So can you talk to that, the fact that you made the deal with TTSA? And that leads to the question is what happens to all the technology stuff? Because it's like Lou Elizondo and these guys have to be walking away from it. They cannot walk away with all the stuff they developed in TTSA.
No, absolutely true, Grant. My partner, Ryan, and myself, we developed that app. I met Lou Elizondo at that conference that Rich Hoffman had there, what was it, spring of last year? And Lou looked at the app, he got very excited, and he says, I want to meet with you and your partner in our office in San Diego, and call me back when we're away from the conference, and if you don't, I'm going to track you down. So we did talk, we flew out there, Mark McNabb came out there with us too. We spent a whole day with the guys, and I can tell you, from my point of view, Lou is the most passionate of everybody. Okay, and we made the deal, but the deal was made with TTSA. The deal was made with TTSA. They have the app. I do get CC'd on various aspects of the progress, and I have to say, honestly, it's not going very fast. They're way behind, and I can also tell you that probably I do know that some of the people that are working on it are they're doing it volunteer.
Yeah.
And I mean, how much commitment do you get if somebody's
doing
it volunteer? So
Jim emphasized they need money for that. They need money for that. They got great big plans, but he said, we need money for it, which is why there's this switch to focusing on entertainment stuff for a while, just so they can get money in and then get the investors they need to, so that they can then build that and pay people to do it.
But Melinda, they've lost their 3 top stars. When it comes to entertainment, they had only 3 guys that were basically.
Those guys didn't want to do that role. They
so
did
what are
it
they going to do now?
begrudgingly.
If they're going to do entertainment, who are they going to have as their big stars on the entertainment show? Their 3 top guys are gone.
I don't know. I mean, I know they're getting involved in projects.
Maybe
Maybe they don't have that answer yet.
How's great?
Look, Tom DeLonge has written 2 novels that can be turned into a movie. That'll make a pile of money.
Yeah.
He's already making a movie.
And not only that, TTSA Entertainment Division owns the rights to that movie.
So what do we think of this Twitter rumor that Lou and Mellon might be collaborating with Valet and Nolan via maybe James Fox?
I asked him and he said he didn't think so, as far as what Jim said.
Anybody else?
Well, I don't think you asked me and I said I don't think Fox has the money, because I talked about the video that he didn't talk about yet, that we gave Fox access to a video. He went to try to buy it to put it in his documentary. It's a top secret U.S. Air Force video from the 1970s that they still have in a vault, and he didn't have the money to put that video with the Vandenberg launch with the UFOs. So if he doesn't have that, and that's what I keep saying is these 3 guys, this is a lot of money for these guys for a year's salary. This is not like a chambermaid at Motel 6. This is a lot of money they got to put out. These guys have to be going somewhere. And that's why I was so suspicious when the question got asked, would you go back to the government if you had the chance?
The cost of the data scientists and the machine learning programmers and the app writers for cell phones and the cloud storage management, that's millions of dollars a year. Millions. Look,
yeah, that's what Jim said.
I did machine learning for Hawkeye 360, Federated Wireless, and the United States government. And I'm going to tell you, people that have that talent and have spent years doing it, they are not cheap, and neither was I.
Yeah, especially today. It's never been in greater demand than it is right now.
Bob, did they ever ask to link up with the stuff you're building?
So I believe that Cogswell and Steve have interacted with them, but we're hearing the issue. With them, they have a plan, but there's no there. They can't pay for cloud storage. They can't pay for the data scientists. I have a $25,000 machine learning computer over here under the desk. They don't have that. Okay, I'm just telling you, they don't have the necessary infrastructure. They have smart, talented volunteers, but what they need is paid people.
Well, just to add to this, I did ask James Fox yesterday about what was on Twitter, and his response back to me was, I can neither confirm nor deny. So we can keep following that.
I don't have a quote from him, but I listened to the interview and I just took notes, and he basically said he, Mellon, and a few others, he won't name them, may start working on a very hard-hitting documentary on a global level, because that was how he was going to reach a global audience. So
I don't think Jock would work with them. Honestly, I don't think so.
Yeah, no,
Valet, yeah, no, he's not.
And Valet would have reasons to have long history, to have reasons.
Why would he need to? He's sitting in Silicon Valley. He's got a ton of investments. He invests in startups. He doesn't need the.
No, he doesn't need it, and he has a reason to side on the favor of the Semivan Hal and that, Kit Green, blah blah blah, that whole group, because he has a long history with them. I'm
totally reserving judgment, and I think
I'm not sure how, I was gonna say, I'm not sure how much of a history he has with the other guys, but he does with them too, now they think about it. So I
think it'll be a really interesting year,
and we're
going to find out what Lou and Chris are doing probably in 2021. It's going to be great, and nothing's stopping. It's going to be really cool. The horrible thing is what the investors for To the Stars, where their money's going. That's unfortunate, And I think we're going to see whatever Chris and Lou do. It's not going to be involved, they're not going to be asking for investments, I don't think.
Those two are so good on camera. That is so hard to replace them. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
You talk about Semivan and Hal. I love, great, but I mean, they don't have the charisma that Mellon's off the charts. The guy's, he's made for Hollywood, and Lou is Lou. So yeah, they got a tough road ahead of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think they've fought that far down the road. Grant, you kept asking, why are these guys leaving? What are they going to do? My emphasis with Jim was, what's now that they're gone? What are you guys going to do? How's this move disclosure for? That was what I wanted.
Yeah, like who's left? Who's left at TTSA? Because Kid Green left.
Everybody.
Nolan left. Now these three guys have left. Like who's left there?
Well, when you look up the website, it's everybody but them. So everybody else is still there.
From a brand standpoint, you're going to see TTSA go away
the advisors
now.
and Meiser and Hal, and I don't know. I'd have to look at the website, but
Tom said Colm Kelleher's gone. I don't know that,
but that was a while ago.
Several members of the board of advisors that I know, they're having almost nothing to do with it. I'm concerned about it. But Lou and Chris, if they want to stay out of government and do stuff, I believe they can do stuff. They're connected. They got Congress to listen. They got Congress to listen.
Lou Elizondo should have his military pension, shouldn't he?
I'll level with you guys. After my conversation with Jim, he wanted to be very reassuring and say, this is all the projects, this is everything we've got going forward, these are all the things in the works, and go on about that. And also to say that they're still all very good friends and very close, and those connections that happened with those briefings and everything had so much, of course, they had so much to do with Chris. And he said these guys are still there when we need them. So he said, are they going off to do their own things? Yes, but he said, he says, as it stands now, they can still go to them. And he said, we're still friends. They've offered their help. They said, you need me to do anything, I'm here. So he said, they'll still do stuff for us. And maybe if they need one in an interim period to do, an interview or something, you might see them doing that. Okay. So I feel like this isn't like cut, boom, they're gone. This is like a transition thing. And he said, they're still involved, and and they've offered their help. So he emphasized that. Now, in everything he was saying, trying to say reassuring things, and for me to pass on to everyone, be reassured this is still going on, and all the ongoing projects are still happening, and they're just trying to get some money, but also that these guys are still, offering their assistance. But I'm going to level with you guys. I came away from the phone call not feeling very reassured.
They're not involved as advisors or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure they're friends and
yeah. Well, he said they've offered their help. They've offered their help, but I admit, you guys, I had concerns and not feeling assured after our phone call. I felt being more evasive with me than he usually is. I mean, we had a very wonderful, friendly phone call, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like
it's a difficult
being guarded in what he said.
Right. Can I go back to Dave Altman and to Dave Scott? You guys heard this many months ago, so you must have some inclination of why this was going to happen. There had to be a reason you knew it was going to happen. Why do you think they're leaving?
Well, the only thing that I didn't know they were leaving, I just knew that they were having problems with the show. And I really probably shouldn't even have said anything now that I think about it, considering I still work in television. So, but yeah, but it was a rumor. It wasn't like anybody told me and said, you can't tell anybody. But there was a rumor going around that the show was canceled.
Now, was that from a production standpoint, or was that from a rating standpoint? Do you know?
Well, it came from somebody that works in production. So, they didn't tell me why. When people tell me things, I usually don't ask questions. I just absorb it until,
And History Channel put them on Saturdays. It was like they were shooting themselves in the foot.
And Jim
And,
made it sound to
Grant,
me
could
like
they be
they wanted
picked
to
up?
take it places that To the Stars didn't want to go with the show. So like the History Channel and the production company
But
wanted it to go a certain way, and he said, that's not what we wanted.
The fact that there's at least there's at least 6 new UFO series that are about to air within the next year.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Like that's all that they're.
That's what I was going to ask you. So let me ask you again. Dave, this whole thing, which kind of blows me away, where your 3 top stars leave and you're going to do some sort of advertising or big movie or whatever. I mean, don't you agree with me that Hollywood is the place? I mean, the TV shows is where, if you want to get to the public and stay away from the UFO community, you put it through a TV show
I think
where people can just sit there and watch it at their leisure and change people's minds. Why would they give up on that?
I think the only thing that could save that TV show, if they try to, is if they released new videos that have never been seen before. That would be, to me, the only way that they would probably get the ratings.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
a visual medium. I mean, what are you going to do unless
Yeah,
you've got video to
everybody
put on a TV show?
Yeah. And I get it, and I know, like, and everybody's heard this, the show isn't made for us, it's made for people that don't know shit about the topic. But, you know, just, you could double your audience, because you could get people from the community that don't watch the show. Plus, you know,
I don't think they're going to be getting any more videos.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why, in my opinion, there's no way it's going to go forward.
So Dave, let me ask you, we need something to stir up Twitter for tomorrow morning. So you're talking about 6 shows. Any hints as to what's coming?
Yeah, so I've worked on all of them. So I know that there's one show that's being made about Roswell. There's another show coming out that's one of those types of, you know, not fact or fake, but they show a video and they're asking people, you know, what do you think it is type of thing. That kind of show is coming. And there's one coming to Showtime that focuses on what the Tic Tac could be. And there's one coming about Hudson Valley.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh.
We just spoke with
Dave's battery's just
Linda
running.
Zimmerman.
They just cut Dave off.
No, Dave had to leave. He told me to tell everybody bye, and so did Rich. They both had to start getting ready for their shows. So.
Oh, okay.
And guys, I think we're going on in almost an hour and 20 minutes now. So if we'd like to do some closing thoughts, maybe on what we need to watch for disclosure.
I
have one closing thought is I'd just like to say that, you know, what To the Stars has accomplished, and a lot of that was probably due to Elizondo and Mellon, but what they've accomplished, just because of what's happened now, nothing can take that away from them. What's happened in the last 3 years for the UFO community, for the world, none of that is ever going to stop. And it's just this ending or transition or whatever you want to call it, it's not the end of disclosure. And there's still a lot of things to be positive about. Lou and Mellon are free to do what they want still. And but everything TTSA has done in the last 3 years, and we just can't take that away from them. Yeah, the investment stuff is weird, and I'm concerned about that. But you know, what they've accomplished and how they've moved the ball forward, you can't take that away from them. No one can.
Jim promised me personally, if he heard anything regarding the request by the DNI for more time for the task force funding. If the funding, when it goes through with everything, he'll let me know. He said if they're under no obligation whatsoever to tell him, but he said he'll be hearing through his, you know, sources and connections and stuff. So he said as he hears, if it goes through, how much time, are they still going to do the public report? Is there any change in the wording? I mean, all these things could be different things along the way, but he said he promised me personally that he would let me know as he hears those things, you know. But I felt like he was being more cautious than ever about sharing stuff openly, because he said the people who are considering funding them don't want them talking about it. So, but that doesn't fit with them doing an entertainment thing unless they're getting movies and stuff or, you know, books done that don't require any of them being out there talking about. So I'm not sure how you reconcile those two things. Like I said, he wanted to be really, you know, reassuring. Oh, the guys are still in, you know, they're still involved as far as they're still our friends and they can talk to us and all our projects are still going. But you guys, after the phone call, bottom line is I personally did not feel assured.
Okay, so if next time you talk to Jim, maybe bring up how do you sell to investors after this happens, the people that are going to invest, and how do you do it without all the technology?
He said all the big money investors want is, what is the product you're producing and how much does it sell for, and what are, you know, like, in other words, like, this is subscribers to the channel for the movie, this is for the TV show, this is the advertisers, this is pure straight out Hollywood business that he's talking about.
Where's the space? I want to remind people that TTSA Entertainment Division owns the output of Angel and Airways, Secret Machines, and any of that stuff that gets made into a song or record or turned into a movie or a television show. TTSA Entertainment Division will get the proceeds. And if it's a movie and we reopen theaters and all the other stuff, they can make a pile of money.
I don't think that they would get everything from Angels and Airwaves.
He assigned the rights to TTSA according to a tweet. According to a tweet. Now, I don't know whether I believe the tweet or not.
Oh, well, you can take that to the bank then if it's a tweet, unless it's been deleted.
If it's Tom's tweet, he'll remove it in an hour anyway.
Well, you guys aren't far off in that. I think their emphasis is on this entertainment stuff, things that can make them money. That he said COVID really hurt them. He said it's all this thing about money, money, money. And I think and he said we have all these projects, but they all require, like you were saying earlier, Bob, with and Robert, you know, that those programs, the tracking programs and all the extra, you know, stuff they're supposed to do and interface and everything, those people have to be paid. It takes money to run them, everything. So I think there's this emphasis on, we got to make some money, and they have some possible investors who are willing to pay for these things that will turn around and make money. So I think that's the emphasis. And I think the bottom line is my sense is, from what he said and everybody has said here, is Chris and Lou really had disclosure in their heart and want to take disclosure bigger and move forward with it, and didn't agree with this, we got to make the money in the entertainment thing, even though it had to happen. Yeah, but I think they said, we realize you guys got to do that. But because we realize that that's not where we're at, and we don't want to be a part of that. That's my sense of what happened.
Exactly.
Grant, I think that Lou feels really held back. He's very frustrated. He wants to move forward. He's watched how they've done it there at To the Stars, and he's looking for his own model that he feels will be successful. You know, To the Stars have gotten bogged down with all this financial stuff. Lou has seen it all. He's seen everything that's happened here. He's being held back. He's breaking free of it. He wants to go alone with the other guys. They will come up with a model that actually works, and they'll just shoot ahead. That's my feeling.
Okay. Do you think because I'll give you my prediction. I think it has to do with the timing of this money coming through, you know, where they're going to get a pile of money from Senate or whoever. And if I was the Senate guys, I would be looking for the 3 top stars, which are the 3 guys that have left. That we need these guys as advisors. We need these guys to help this task force move along. And I just think the timing, that's why I keep asking
and Grant, you may be right.
Time are they moving at this particular time?
Grant, you may be right, because Jim, that long pause before he said, when I asked him about government jobs, you know, he said, well, there's a possibility, and they're weighing their options. Well, it sounds like they're being given options to weigh. Yeah.
Somebody's trying to recruit them, and maybe they see that as a better option than going through Hollywood. Like Lou says, they're into the technology. They're not into the, you know, people getting entertained or anything like that.
Well, and
They
I think I could.
this thing about the threat and the technology and all this kind of stuff.
And I think I can tell, I don't know about you guys, but from day one with Steve Justice's involvement that, you know, he was just in it for the technology, obviously.
Yeah. And there may be suitcases full of money now.
The other money issue is I was told that the people, and we already know this, but the people who work inside the UAP task force, they're praying, quote unquote, praying for the funding to come through. So
yeah,
hopefully that happens. And once it happens, you know, it'll be a new ball game. It'd be, you know, it's exciting to see 2021.
Well, this may indicate they may be sure they've got it because they're recruiting. To me, they're recruiting the 3 top guys that they need as advisors.
If they are, that's
yeah. That's why I keep asking everybody why now. I mean, they had all these problems. Why these guys all seem to leave at the same time and clearing out? It just nobody seems to have answered that question to me. Like, because you're saying Christmas or whatever. It's like, no, it's not Christmas. There's something else going on here.
Well, an end of the year, but it may have been planned for a while, or there was a reason they decided to wait. You know, I don't actually know, and he didn't tell me that.
The whole money issue even started back then. You know, people are like, where are the results for the metamaterials? Well, that stuff is expensive and they didn't have the money. So, you know, it's still up in the air.
And Nolan and Valet got a great result, which they talked about in Phenomena. So that's number one. The other thing is, so let's suppose that the events of November, which happened to make major changes in January, are actuated. And Chris Mellon finds himself suddenly being offered an opportunity in the Pentagon or wherever. And the others look around and go, gee willikers, he's gone, maybe I'll go too. I mean, it's kind of the thing where one person hits the door and the herd stampedes after them. That's what I think is likely. I don't have any firsthand information, but Mellon could go back into the Pentagon whenever he wanted to.
At the risk of catching some flack from Jim, while he didn't flat out say that, he certainly alluded to it. I think the new administration, there's something going on with Chris's involvement. And he didn't flat out say it, but he danced around it in such a way that I've had so many conversations now with Jim over the past couple of years that I'm like, I know when to pay attention. And I think you're absolutely right, Bob.
Given his myopic, totally focused, I want this damn crap out, and him talking about every classified system the United States government owns on the TTSA blog. And let's suppose, okay, fine. You come in and you be the manager for the UAPTF as a civilian and not a Navy guy, and you interact with DNI and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Given that he's already worked for all of them and is friends with Mark Warner, that would be something he would be interested in. Do I know that? No. But I'm just telling you, that's the kind of thing where the guy could go in with 9,000 connections and make a big difference in something he's clearly passionate about. It's like an ideal job for him.
I think we have to look at this as still optimistic that the ball is still moving down the field. The deck has been reshuffled now.
I agree that it's moving down the field. I'm sorry TTSA had a problem. I thought they were going to have problems. I hate to be right. And I'm glad Mellon and Luis Elizondo are going to go on and do things.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. Well, everybody, I think that's a nice positive note to end things on for tonight. So I would just like to thank everybody for being here, and thank Dave and Rich for being here for the first part. And Grant, was there anything you'd like to say to close us out?
No, I'll leave it up to you. Merry Christmas, and let's see what happens in 2021, and we'll do another panel down the road when a few more signs are shown as to who was right and who was wrong tonight.
Sounds good. All right, everybody, let's give away.
Thank you again for having me
on.
All right,
watching live. Thank you so much.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy Festivus.
Happy holidays.